teams looking for win one collide at Canadian Stadium as the Stampeders meet the Blue Bombers. It's a hot, breezy night in the Manitoba capital. The temperature 29, but with the humidex, it feels more like 36 degrees. And a front of early season urgency is also blowing through this stadium. There's Tom Higgins, who saw plenty of positives in the Calgary loss against Toronto last week, except he knows his team can't afford 5 turnovers again. On the other side, Jim Daly, a 4-year assistant and defensive coordinator in Calgary. His rebuilding plans in Winnipeg could use a confidence boost with a victory tonight.
Two desperate teams early on in the season for different reasons. Winnipeg Blue Bombers want to hang on to fans and get some momentum. Calgary wants that first win with a new-look team.
Now the Stampeders won their opening road game a year ago, but that's the last time they won away from McMahon Stadium. So that's the challenge for the Stamps tonight, to get their record evened at 1-1. Veteran Troy Westwood has it on the tee. He'll be kicking into a stiff breeze in this first quarter. There's Tony Stallings in for the injured Ronnie Jenkins. He's back along with Marte Jenkins to receive the kickoff from Westwood. Bud Steen whistles play in, and here we go. In the air towards the sidelines and out before Dybert touches the ball. Henry Burris leads Calgary's offense out, and Burris, the emphasis to minimize the mistakes tonight.
Yeah, and Henry Burris will be a lot more relaxed and try and use Nick Lewis and Jermaine Copeland as inside receivers as much as possible. Probably go to a quick passing game early. And he's got the guys up front that can help him do that, led by Jamie Crysdale at center in his 207th consecutive CFL start.
That kick out of bounds, so they're going to spot the ball at the 45. So good shape. You see Godfrey Ellis, who was pressed into duty last week when Alexander Gauthier went out with a dislocated shoulder. He hung in there pretty well against the Argos, but this is first CFL start. And he may be a target tonight as he tries to present the backside of Henry Burris. First and 10 for the Stamps. And Burris has pressure from Sean Woodson. Got away downfield and incomplete as he looked for Kenyon Rambo.
Defensively for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, pretty good effort, although the numbers didn't reflect it up front. Gavin Walls is a newcomer in a defensive line that has some experience, by Joe Fleming. There's a linebacking core that's getting a little long in the tooth, but feels that they can still contribute. Sean Woodson probably the best of that group so far. And then the secondaries has some changes. Brad Franklin starts at halfback for Tim Carter this week.
And the 2 corners plus safety Wes Lysak, former Stampeders, 2nd and 10. And Burris overthrowing Jermaine Copeland. And as he started last week against the Argos, a little hot with the opening passes of the game.
Yeah, on second down, certainly a ball that he could have brought down and put in the, gave Jermaine Copeland a chance to catch. But the first one was pressure from Sean Woodson on first down off the edge. So Burris on the run on his first down, second down, another overthrow.
Burke Dale's in. First punt in the Canadian Football League was 23 yards, and then he was able to settle the nerves. Keith Stokes always dangerous, and he has 4 kick return touchdowns against Calgary in the last 3 years. With the wind at his back, the rookie punter, and it's Stokes from his 24. And he is brought down neatly as Stefan Fortin, the former Alouette, was first man down on coverage. A 41-yard punt as T. Martin leads the Bombers out. The starting lineup brought to you by Tums. Tums tackles heartburn fast.
And for Martin to have success in this one tonight, he needs Charles Roberts going, and that will mean that the receivers and that entire receiving core got a newcomer in Vinny Sutherland in for Milt Stiegel, who's going to have to block downfield along with a much more aggressive effort with 2 new offensive linemen at tackle.
Wade Miller in at fullback Charles Roberts, and he meets a bunch, including Winnipeg native Scott Coe on the initial Roberts carry of the game. And that has been a recurring theme through the first 2 games. Not much there for Roberts.
Good job by the Calgary defensive line, led by Demetrius Maxey in week 1 versus the Toronto Argonauts, credited for 2 sacks. Like he may have had 3. The stats will say 2 for now. Anyway, the linebacking core has 1 newcomer, Trey Young, over there for George White, who's out with a hamstring problem. Secondary pretty much the same, except for Jacoby Shepard on the corner.
Really no gain on the play. 2nd and almost 10, and look out. Nearly picked off by the safety, Donnie McGee, who'd like to have another shot at that because there was a lane that was empty to the end zone.
Well, one thing that T. Martin has got to figure out is that there's 1 extra guy playing in the Canadian Football League, and he's often lined up at the safety spot, so he can move around. Now, safety Don McGee moves all the way over, slides over to McGarity, who's pointing at himself like he may have broke off his route. They will talk about that, but T. Martin's got to figure out where that 5th player is in the secondary.
Lead-footed John Ryan in, and pressure. This one is blocked, and the ball will be picked up and knocked out of bounds. Did he get to the end zone? Yes! Touchdown! Nick Lewis celebrates the 3rd punt block of the year against this Winnipeg Blue Bomber team.
Well, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in week 1 versus Saskatchewan had a nightmare on the special teams. Jim Daly addressed the group after that one and said, hey, that's just not good enough. Nick Lewis right down the middle, just skies up and over top of the block, blocks it himself, then scoops it up. Watch this scoop with 1 hand. He just one-handed that baby and brings it into the end zone.
Stampeders short a man on the convert as they celebrate on the bench. And it couldn't be a worse start for the home side.
Well, Jim Daly thought he had fixed the problems because when the Winnipeg Blue Bombers went and played the Edmonton Eskimos, special teams was not their issue. They had improved in that area. And they've slipped back into some special teams problem. A bad block by Vinny Sutherland, the newcomer, up front, I believe.
Like Sean Gallant was discussing things as well at the Winnipeg bench with Jim Daly on what went wrong as DeAngelis adds the extra point. It didn't take long. 2 minutes, 41 seconds in. Nifty pickup and footwork by Nick Lewis. Scott Gordon got to John Ryan's punts twice in week 1, and Nick Lewis did it tonight.
Well, first of all, Nick Lewis skies to get this. Look at the vertical jump from Nick Lewis. Sean Gallant is the guy trying to block him, not Vinny Sutherland. It's 22 Sean Gallant, and he has to deliver. What Gallant did was catch Nick Lewis jumping in the air, and Nick Lewis' momentum took him into the punt, and then he scoops it up with 1 hand, tips it to the other for the touchdown.
So an athletic play by Lewis, and that snowball that Dave Reindorf mentioned just got edged over the side of the hill, and somehow the Bombers have to reverse the momentum quickly here tonight. Stokes from his end zone, and Stokes still going. Collared briefly, but broke through the arm tackle, and maybe that will energize the Bombers. Good return of 42 yards by Stokes.
You know, it really was a great return, and it's worth another look because of what Stokes does to fight off a vicious hit up high around his head. Remember, last year Stokes was clotheslined like this, knocked down against the Hamilton Tiger Cats. In fact, they looked at the rules after the play, and Stokes that time fights it off to pick up some good yardage.
So T. Martin 2 and out. His first time. Back to Roberts, and Charles Roberts with a more Roberts-like run up the middle to the 43-yard line, and 6 yards.
Well, I mentioned it in the opening of the show, but Charles Roberts last year averaged 17 rushes for over 80 yards per game, and his totals 1,522 yards rushing. 17 attempts though running the football. This year it's well below that. Now he did get off to a slow start last year and finished strong.
Roberts an extra receiver in 2nd and 5. Martin wide side, and he has Jamie Stoddard into the starting lineup with the adjustments, and Stoddard with a first down catch. A lot of people in Winnipeg feel Jamie Stoddard should be in the starting lineup.
Well, he's up here at the top of your screen. And Stoddard, what I like about this play from T. Martin is it's a timing throw to the wide field, so it's not an easy throw to make. And as Stoddard just breaks out to the sideline, it's the throw that T. Martin has to make because of the coverage that he was facing. So the right read from a young quarterback.
He said last week there were times when 5 yards was open, he held the ball, said, I want a little bit more, but you can't get greedy early. Charles Roberts, and he just got, oh, if it was only the tearaway jersey, but John Grace got a paw on the sweater and impeded his progress.
Well, and it probably stops a big run for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, Charles Roberts. And, you know, I mentioned last year he got off to a slow start. He only had 64 yards rushing after 2 games last season, of course, finished with over 1,500. In that third game last year against Saskatchewan, he broke out with 110 yards. So I think everyone's waiting for Charles Roberts to break out. He almost did there.
He sure did. Oh, problems with the snap. Martin's got to get on it. And he's buried back at the 35-yard line with Demetrius Maxey and Scott Coe there in pursuit. Loss of 13 on the mishandled snap from Sheridan.
This is always the downside of the shotgun formation. The upside of the shotgun is that you are back from the line of scrimmage. It gives you more time with the football. The downside is you've got to take your eyes off the coverage to look at the football and take that snap. And it's a tougher snap for Matt Sheridan than, of course, giving it right to him.
Well, let's see if they've got the problems in protecting the punter solved. Ryan's kick hangs up in the air, and they'll get the no yards as Rambo fields it on the run, just 31 yards into that stiff breeze, and they'll tack on the no yards penalty against the Bombers. Well, after the penalty, a net of only 16 on the punt, but they did get the blocking assignment down, right?
Yeah, Sean Woodson goes back as a personal protector, and it's the little things. I'll show you the difference between a blocked punt and a successful punt. Watch what Woodson does to Kolekska right there. Knocks him down by delivering a blow rather than catching. Difference between punting the ball and getting it blocked.
Calgary offense working with a half field here and the wind at their back. With the Bomber 54, Joffrey Reynolds 100+ yards last week, and he's stacked up in the middle as they scrum. And not much there against that tough Winnipeg front that Jock Climie talked about.
Yeah, and maybe lost in the shuffle last week for the Calgary Stampeders was the play of Joffrey Reynolds, because so much tension and focus was on Henry Burris and the fact that he was so pumped up and wasn't comfortable in game one that people forgot Joffrey Reynolds rushed for over 100 yards and had a pretty good game.
2nd and 8. McGriggs checks out for Winnipeg, and Stanford Samuels is in as the nickel back for the Bombers. Here comes pressure. Burris is down. Rylan Wickman, the middle linebacker, blitzing, gets to Henry Burris.
Rylan Wickman comes on the blitz. Linebackers coming for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and a lot of people wondering if Rylan Wickman can still get it done, being the veteran of 6 years in the Canadian Football League, and wondering if he's a little long in the tooth. Well, he comes in there nicely, gets some help from Doug Brown, who brings him down, and Wickman fights his way to the quarterback as well. I think he can still play.
That's one of those where they could split the sack in half, because Doug Brown was big-time pressure up the middle.
You take the high road, I'll take the low road. Meet you at home.
Here's Dales, gets it into the air, and it's Stokes from his 15. Nice move on Grace. Then John Grace recovers, and he is brought down after a 40-yard punt and a 6-yard return. Well, a Winnipeg native made some noise this week when he discussed the merits of 4 teams in the West and decided that Winnipeg really wasn't a team to worry about.
Well, everybody in the West has a chance, according to Scott Coe, except the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. They're just not very good at all. Don't think for a minute that that wasn't posted up on the Winnipeg Blue Bomber locker room.
T. Martin trying to get things going. The fade pattern, looking for Kamau Peterson incomplete, and step for step there, Jermaine Chapman on the corner.
You know, and that's a ball that Kamau Peterson has got to come up with, especially with Milt Stegall out of the lineup. Kamau Peterson had a chance of that football. He had his hands on it inbounds, and he just didn't come up with the catch. If you're going to help a young quarterback, you need some of those catches early in the game.
One of 9 former Stampeders in this Winnipeg lineup tonight. 2nd and 10. Martin pumped, lost it, and it looks like he got back on it. But John Grace was blitzing, and Martin hits the deck.
A lot of pressure coming from the interior of that defensive line. You can see the push from Sheldon Napustuk right up the middle. I mean, that's just forcing the entire line of scrimmage along with Demetrius Maxey, and a little help from John Grace at the linebacking core, just pushing that line of scrimmage back into the lap of T. Martin. There was no time for the pump fake.
And so now Ryan stands in his end zone, hunting against a fairly stiff breeze in this first quarter.
I wonder if it's better to give up a safety. Field position here is automatic field goal range.
Rambo awaiting at the Winnipeg 50, and you got it, coach. Ryan will try and take a little extra time off the clock. He's doing the full end zone tour before Pascal Masson finally forces him out. And 2 more for the Stamps. So T. Martin still looking for his initial first down, and it's a 9-point deficit that the Bombers find themselves in.
Getting some help from Spurgeon Wynn along the sideline, who's been demoted by Jim Daly basically to number 3 on the depth chart behind Russ Mickna. And T. Martin with Kevin Glenn out due to injury. Now Glenn, who's right in the front of your screen right there, Kevin Glenn in street clothes, says he may be ready for next week.
He was working out yesterday on his own and the tender ankle.
I tell you what though, I am still a little puzzled on the Spurgeon Wynn issue.
They did make the deal for him with the anticipation that he might figure into the plans this year. But you're right, as of right now, number 3 on the depth chart, even after an injury to the starter. And another kickoff out of bounds. We'll see if Calgary elects to take it at the 45. So nothing going right once again here for Winnipeg,
you know,
on home turf.
And right now, Chris, Troy Westwood feels like we've all felt on the first tee of the green when you hit it into the bush and you go, that fairway is so wide, how could I possibly have missed it?
You've seen me play.
Westwood shaking his head, because now with the new rule that was put in about 2-3 years ago, I want to say, now 45-yard line with the wind at your back is huge field position, so it's a major error for the kicker to knock it out of bounds on a kickoff.
Well, we talked about Burris moving the football against a tough Argo defense last week with 412 net yards, but they want to finish drives, and he's enjoyed good field position so far. And Joffrey Reynolds, big hole left side, cuts it back, and he's all the way down to the Blue Bomber 45-yard line as he followed the rookie left tackle.
Godfrey Ellis, and this is a way to sort of break in the rookie starting at left tackle, is to have him involved in a little run blocking, because those offensive line love to get up and just fire off the football, and he's working on Gavin Walls. Does a nice job of sealing the corner for Joffrey Reynolds. That's a big block for Godfrey Ellis.
A native of Nassau in the Bahamas, and Tom Higgins says he's so cool he doesn't realize there should be pressure on him. Reynolds going to go for a run again, and he puts down the shoulder, runs over Omar Evans, and has another first down. 20 on the first carry, 11 that time, and he might be on his way to another century mark.
Hey, Joffrey Reynolds is getting the corner, and in running backs, it doesn't matter who's back there at this level. If you get the corner like that, you're going to pick up some yards. They went left on first down, they went right on the next down, and big yardage both ways.
Talking to Tom Higgins yesterday, you got the impression he wasn't too enamored with Reynolds in training camp, but when the lights come on game day, it's a different story. Dybert, the former Calgary Colt, pounds down inside the 30.
You know, Chris, that's a good point, and Matt Dunnigan talked about it in the pregame show, that practice speed is very important preparing a team for game time, whether it be a quarterback or a running back. Like Joffrey Reynolds in practice, when you're not really going full speed because you don't even have full gear on, it's hard to get a gauge on how a running back looks. And so Tom Higgins was concerned with Joffrey Reynolds because of that, and then he gets in the game and he sees him run over people, goes, yeah, he's fine. He's okay.
Dybert got 5. So it's 2nd and 5 from the Bomber 29. Burris with time, and he's got Jermaine Copeland, resplendent yesterday in a royal blue suit and matching alligator shoes, and he tap dances for another first down.
Jermaine Copeland has fun when he plays the game, and that's one of the things that he brings to this team. If anything, Jermaine Copeland will help to loosen things up for a team that has a lot of expectations hanging on their shoulders right now. With all the off-season signings, including Jermaine Copeland, he's trying to loosen the boys up and say, let's just play some ball.
12 for Copeland, another first down. Back to Reynolds on the ground. And he is dragged down by Doug Brown, who met him at the line of scrimmage, but Reynolds' momentum gets him a few.
That's a nice example of Joffrey Reynolds' power. And this is what they love about Joffrey Reynolds. He's got speed. He can get outside. We've seen that in this drive. But here's a look at the power from Joffrey Reynolds. Doug Brown's a big man. Now granted, he's also working on the offensive lineman there, and that's Jay McNeil. That's no slouch. So he's got to work on both of them. But Joffrey Reynolds pushes that pile with him because of his great strength.
Yeah, we don't have to tell you about Doug Brown's credentials, a 2-time All-Canadian and the top Canadian a few years back. 2nd and 5, Burris, and the receiver fell near the goal line as Kenyon Rambo,
you know what,
lost his footing.
Kenyon Rambo was trying to read the play and just couldn't figure it out, turned way too late. That one will go down as an incompletion to Henry Burris, but Rambo, right after the play, slapped his hand on the ground because he knew he was the open receiver. He was the read that Burris had to go to, and he wasn't ready.
Well, the rookie place kicker, DeAngelis from Niagara Falls, has been perfect so far this season. 6 for 6 preseason, 3 for 3 against Toronto. And this from 21 yards out. And he stays perfect as the Stampeders enhance their lead on Wendy's CFL Live. Stamp started slowly against Toronto, but a quick start tonight, and a recurring theme for the Bombers, now outscored 44-zip in the first quarter of their 3 games so far this season. Down by a dozen here as Winnipeg starts from their 35. Roberts drilled again behind the line of scrimmage. Former Blue Bomber Brian Clark in on the tackle.
Brian Clark was one of the guys in Winnipeg that they just hated to lose. And sometimes you're okay when a free agent moves on, you're going in a different direction anyway. Well, when Brian Clark went to Calgary, that was a problem for Brendan Tammany. He hated that one.
Clark talking last week about how proud the tradition is of linebackers in Winnipeg and how Les Brown used to talk about it. Another problem with the shotgun, and T. Martin scrambling for his life. Now turns it upfield and has a completion. Jamie Stoddard coming back to the football, and they make a whole lot out of what could have been a disaster. He'll be a yard or 2 short of a first down, but Stoddard's one of those guys that can help a rookie quarterback.
He sure can. It was a tough catch to make over there on the corner. Now, the Calgary Stampeders have had to make a substitution. Pascal Masson is playing corner. He's in coverage, but he's right there on Stoddard. Great job by T. Martin just to make anything, get anything out of this. And you know what? T. Martin probably saved 2 points and the safety, because that field position alone gives John Ryan a chance to punt this away.
So the first-year center, Matt Sheridan, has been off the mark with his quarterback in this opening quarter. Rambo awaits. John Ryan, great punt into the wind. Rambo all the way back inside his 10, but maybe returnable. Past Vetkovic, and Neil McKinley there to stop him after a 15-yard return. That's a 57-yard punt into the wind as we join Sean Churchill.
Thank you very much, Chris. I am joined by injured Blue Bomber quarterback Kevin Glenn. Kevin, how is a high ankle sprain? Will you be back next week?
Don't know yet. It's day to day, so I'm doing a lot better though. Hopefully, if not next week, then the week after next. But I'm gonna try to push for this next week coming up.
Your impressions on what T. Martin is doing right and what he's doing wrong?
I think he's doing a good job. When you're put in that kind of situation, you need help from everybody. And right now we're not getting help from everybody. We just got to calm down as offense and try to match Calgary's intensity tonight.
Thank you very much.
All right, thanks.
Back to you guys.
Kevin Glenn not in the lineup, nor Milt Stiegel.
Well, just to follow up on Kevin Glenn's comments about T. Martin, and he talked about he needs some help, and it starts with the snap from center. I mean, if you can't get the snap from center, forget it. But the defense is hanging in there, and they've got Calgary in second and long. So T. Martin needs to get the snap first to have a chance with the football.
Antoine Young, a former Stampeder defensive end, made the tackle on Joffrey Reynolds. And so it's 2nd and 10. This is the deepest Calgary's had to start tonight in this opening quarter. Burris over the middle. There's Nick Lewis, and he has a first down and still going to the 50-yard line before Justin Coleman drags him down.
And so much more of a relaxed throw from Henry Burris. I mean, in a game and almost a full quarter, he's looked like he's dropped back and jumped up. He's had happy feet in the pocket. That time he relaxed, he dropped back, he dropped it over the middle to Nick Lewis, and he did the rest.
Now he's listening to his wife.
That's right.
His wife said, "Why were you more uptight yesterday or last week than you were against the BC Lions in the Western Final? Was it as big a game?" And he said she had a point.
And it's a good point. And Nicole, it was bang on in her advice to her husband, Henry Burris, and just saying, was that game...
Holding. Calgary number 50. 10-yard penalty. Repeat first down.
Was that game last week versus Toronto more important than the Western Final a year ago when you played tremendous? And he went, you know what, you're right. Sometimes it's the spouse that puts it in perspective for you a little bit.
Jay McNeil charged with the hold, so they march it back to the Calgary 41. It'll be 1st and 20. Joe Fleming digging in. The defense trying to come up with a big play here on what should be the final play, first quarter. Another flag will negate that, and Tony Stallings dropped the hitch screen.
A lot of movement on the line of scrimmage there. And maybe a change up in the snap count from Henry Burris drew the Winnipeg Blue Bombers offside.
And Henry talked about doing this.
Offside. Winnipeg 92. 5-yard penalty. Repeat first down.
Gavin Walls, the culprit, he talked about doing this another way to take some heat off his young offensive tackle Godfrey Ellis.
Yeah, because what it does is it makes the defensive linemen make sure they wait for the ball to be snapped. Gives the offensive line an extra second.
So it's 1st and 15. And Burris looks downfield. Copeland turned late to look for the ball. And Burris was drilled by Tom Canada. And that is the final play of the opening quarter. A good one for the Stamps. Offensive coordinator Mike Gibson is going over things to the Winnipeg bench as we check the numbers. The stats of the quarter brought to you by Rona, the how-to people.
Yeah, he's going over things for their offense because that's flat out ugly after a quarter of play. I don't care if you're going into a hurricane. You don't want to be going backwards. They've had problems with the snap from center, a blocked kick. Calgary Stampeders, Henry Burris, one comfortable throw in the first quarter out of all of them.
2nd down, 15. Burris steps up over the middle, has a completion, and Nick Lewis, who scored the touchdown on a punt block, has a big catch for a first down at the Bomber 40-yard line.
That's basically the over and under play from the Calgary Stampeders. The overman will be Nick Lewis. He's going to come down the field and cross. He'll be deeper, and the idea here is to layer the linebackers. Nick Lewis comes over top, and underneath, Kenyon Rambo was drawing the linebackers forward to create space for Burris to drop it in behind him, and he does that to Lewis.
24 yards for Nick Lewis. A first down for the Stamps, and they pitch it left side. Joffrey Reynolds. And Reynolds cracks down to the 36 with 4.
Well, clearly the Calgary Stampeders are trying to attack the perimeter in the running game and get Joffrey Reynolds outside off tackle as they take on the Winnipeg Blue Bombers.
And Tom Higgins said he's not the first Calgary running back that wasn't a great practice player. When Tom Higgins was playing as a Stampeder, a guy by the name of Willie Burden was kind of on the outs, and then the Detroit Lions called, and they decided to reassess Willie Burden, and once he got into the games, he was a keeper. Second down and a pass behind Rambo, and incomplete.
Yeah, and some of that is practice tempo, like we've talked about, and some is just the character of the guy. There are players that simply aren't good practice players and are gamers. They get out there and the lights are on and they go. It's the reverse is also there when you look at guys that look great in practice, look unreal in the preseason, and then you turn it on for real and they disappear. So it can happen both ways, but Joffrey Reynolds definitely a game player.
So punting situation, Stokes is in, and he is joined by Vinny Sutherland as Burke Dales sets for his first punt against the Wind, and they say that Sutherland has great speed, maybe the best on the team. And punt angled, and a great job by the rookie. They've been working on this, and Dales is able to put it inside the 10. One of the big stories in Winnipeg that Dave Mudge did not start this game at left tackle. Top offensive lineman in the CFL in 2001, and now he's in for Dan Getve at left guard as they continue to make changes on that offensive line, and they follow Mudge. Roberts with a hole, and he sprung out to the 20-yard line.
Well, maybe this is the key to move the veteran and Dave Mudge inside, because that's exactly where they run the football. Dan Getve is not injured. This is a coach's decision to move Dave Mudge in there. And a nice block at the point of the attack. Finally, Charles Roberts has a bubble to hit.
Biggest run of the year for Roberts, 15 on the play. And they get some breathing room out at the 20-yard line. Back to Charles Roberts on the left side again. And a cutback up to the 38-yard line. Back-to-back first downs.
Boy, and this takes a ton of pressure off T. Martin, backed up in his own shadow, his own goalpost, to be able to run two running plays out of there to Charles Roberts. Remember, last year he got out to a slow start, 64 yards rushing in the first two games. And he had 110 versus Saskatchewan. Is he breaking out now?
17 that time, so he's up to 38 on the night. And this time Dave Mudge moves early. Had a couple of back-to-back successful plays, and he was a little anxious to get out of the starting blocks.
Well, and here's what it does, too. Even those two plays alone will help the Winnipeg offense and T. Martin specifically, because now when T. Martin turns around and goes play action to Charles Roberts, the Calgary Stampeders have to honor that. They have to make sure that they look at Charles Roberts first, because he's had a couple of good runs. So it should give T. Martin a little more time in the passing game.
Roberts a career 5.5 average per carry. And this season it was 2.6 yards, so less than half. But he's changing that here in this second quarter. 6.3 yards a carry tonight, and now they'll use him out of the backfield, trying to dodge away from Brian Clark, and he got some help on the outside. Somebody lost their lid. It's Jacoby Shepard, who was out for a while when Pascal Masson came in on the corner, but Shepard checks back in.
Jacoby Shepard in the game for Ben Kelly. Ben Kelly started the season on the corner for the Calgary Stampeders and hurt his hamstring. He should be back soon, but Shepard is an interesting story. He was drafted in 2000 by St. Louis, and the Rams, Mike Martz loved him, said he was just an unbelievable talent. He played 15 games at 20 years old in National Football League.
Maybe a little too much too soon. Look out! Oh, T. Martin is smoked from the backside, and that's Trey Young, who's in for George White. And we saw in the preseason game, the first preseason game, he might have been the best defender that Calgary had.
When you see how Calgary loads up the backside, there's Brian Clark, that first arrow, and Young on the outside. Now they have to decide, who are we going to block? Well, you take the most dangerous. That's Scott Reginald stepping up on Clark. So by the scheme and the design of the defense, Trey Young is clean to the quarterback.
Three-time Defensive Player of the Year at Montana. Not Bob Obilovich miss him. He gets all the guys from Montana. Kenyon Rambo after the big Ryan punt. Up to the 30-yard line. A 68-yard Ryan punt. 12-0 Stamps. Hasn't been a lot to celebrate in the early part of this 75th anniversary season in Winnipeg, but maybe some positive signs on that last possession.
Well, they moved the offensive line around a little bit, moved Dave Mudge to the inside guard position. All of a sudden, Charles Roberts starts having some success in the running game. So maybe this is the key for T. Martin. Give him a little help, get Charles Roberts going.
Stampeders with the lead here as we approach the 5-minute mark, second quarter, and Calgary with the football just outside their 30. And the pitch right side. Reynolds, nothing doing. No hole that time. Sean Woodson stepped up, and a gang of Blue Bomber tacklers.
Yeah, and Tom Canada makes that play, and obviously this is a Winnipeg adjustment to Joffrey Reynolds. They're trying to get Joffrey Reynolds to the outside. Mentioned that early. And now what they're doing with the defensive ends in Winnipeg, Tom Canada, is getting them up the field more. And Tom Canada gets up the field, and he turns Joffrey Reynolds into Sean Woodson on that last play.
10 tackles early in the year for Canada. That defense was talking about giving up singles, not home runs this week. Henry Burris downfield, picked off. Justin Coleman's got the interception, and it's the first of the year for the Blue Bombers.
You know, this play has been a problem for Henry Burris in this offense in 2 games now, and it's a very similar play to the Michael Fletcher interception, which was a crucial one. Copeland goes down the seam. Henry Burris throws it like he's going to stay there, and Copeland bends inside. A communication problem between receiver and quarterback. He's got to throw it to the spot. You can see Copeland's going into the middle, not staying down the seam. If Copeland stays down the seam, probably no problem. He fakes down there and goes into the middle, and now Coleman can jump.
So the Bombers take over at the Calgary 49. Charles Roberts, another good hole, and he swivels down at the 43. Ball pops loose after the whistle.
You know, talking about that Winnipeg offensive line, is this a crucial drive for him on the sudden change after the turnover? Talked to Mike Abu-Meshrik, and Abu-Meshrik saying in the paper that it's personal now for them. You know, they're still moving people around. You see Dan Goodspeed in there. He's a newcomer. They've got to get some continuity. Dave Mudge playing out of position at guard. But they are taking it personal.
They wanted to be a little nastier. 2nd and 4. Martin with time has a completion. Wayne McGarity, the former Stamp, who scored touchdowns in each game against Winnipeg as a Calgary Stampeder last year, has the first down catch.
It is absolutely crucial if the Winnipeg Blue Bombers are going to have success this season at all, that they get Wayne McGarity going. Wayne McGarity started slow in 2 games, 3 catches for 11 yards. Not good enough. Now, whether that's Wayne McGarity or just the rotation at quarterback, it depends on who you ask. But they got to get McGarity going.
13 on that play. First down at the 30. Charles Roberts ran into Sheldon Napastuk. John Grace into assist. Nothing doing that time.
Well, with this Calgary defense, you know one thing if you're playing against them. You're going to be in second and long at times during the game. Even if you start to get some momentum like Winnipeg has, these guys could shut the door on you in a hurry.
They held or discouraged Toronto to 22 rushing yards last week. It just seemed like the Argos got away from it when it wasn't successful early. Bombers trying to change it. Here comes the blitz. And T. Martin in trouble. Underhands it, incomplete. Kamau Peterson was in the neighborhood, and I think Martin did get it across the line of scrimmage to avoid not only the sack, but the grounding of the football.
Well, this is, let's send the house. Let's go here. Safety, Don McGee. Why not send him? How about John Grace? We'll send him. We'll send our defensive lineman. Scott Coe's up here. We'll send him. Let's just send everyone. Brian Clark's in there. You got every one of the linebackers. You throw in a free safety, and there's just not enough blue jerseys to block for T. Martin on that play.
So Troy Westwood will try and make his first field goal of the season. He was 0 for 1 after missing from 45 yards out. And this one is a miss that goes through the end zone for a single point. So the fans let Westwood have it. So Troy Westwood misses from 37 and just 1 point off the Justin Coleman interception.
Well, yeah, that miss by Troy Westwood's like taking a knife to the solar plexus of old Mo. Momentum ended with that miss.
The 35, play action. Burris pumps and now delivers. Rambo sprawled, and they say incomplete.
Well, that was looking like it was going to be the knockout shot from Omar Evans that Davis Sanchez in game 1 for Winnipeg gave to Milt Stiegel and put him out of the lineup, because it's a similar play where Rambo's heading to the outside, and sitting out there is Omar Evans, who comes over the top. He was ready to just put the hit on him.
Again, Evans, one of the 2 former Stampeders on the corners for Winnipeg. 2nd and 10. Boris Copeland, and he tried to put a move on Brad Franklin, the defender, before he caught the football.
Well, Copeland uses his speed to influence Brad Franklin and then put the brakes on. And you see he's got room. He just peeked. You see Copeland, he looked up here. He looked to where he wanted to run, and they said, that's where I wanted to run, right down there. I just forgot to bring the football with me.
Yeah. He might have gone a long way.
It happens to the pros, too. Every now and then you go back to the fundamentals. You got to catch the ball first before you take your eyes off it.
So maybe Mo's not dead yet.
Maybe not. Just wounded from the missed field goal from Troy Westwood.
Too much time for the Stampeders. And so they'll march it 5 back. The youngster.
Violation. Calgary, number 14. 5-yard penalty, repeat 3rd.
Burke Dales, they netted 31.6 yards a punt against Toronto. So if that trend continues here, Keith Stokes should provide Winnipeg with some nice field position.
Well, then you consider the way that John Ryan is punting the football. It could help Winnipeg as this game goes on.
That one, a short punt. Stokes will get the new yards. And now double back, broke Chevrier's tackle. Mark Mitchell will help him out of bounds at midfield. Just 23 yards, so T. Martin's got great field position. You saw his former Tennessee teammate drop a ball on the last offensive series. They won a national title together back in 1998.
T. Martin taking over for Peyton Manning at Tennessee, and there's Jermaine Copeland with a touchdown pass. However, it wasn't always roses between the two of them, Copeland and T. Martin.
Yes, Copeland complained that when Manning left and Martin came in, it went from 81 catches to 36. So
I was wondering what happened with T. Martin and why he didn't get the ball more, was his criticism.
Martin with great field position after the penalty. He'll roll, flag down, downfield McGarity. Can't reel it in with Jacoby Shepard in coverage.
Now, of course, when Copeland had said that about T. Martin, and that when he took over for Manning, that You know, we asked T. Martin how he would respond to what Copeland said.
Illegal contact on a receiver. Calgary number 3.
You know, I come to work this morning, people tell me he said some things in the newspaper about somebody didn't get the ball enough or whatever, but all I remember is we were 13-0, national championship, SEC champions, and I wasn't worried about individual stats.
He said the right thing. He said he had Jamal Lewis, Travis Henry, Peerless Price.
Yeah, Peerless Price is a pretty good go-to receiver for you if you're T. Martin at Tennessee.
And his coach was, one of his coaches, Conrich Holloway, who said, just try and keep everybody happy. Like that's an easy thing to do. There's Roberts, stopped by John Grace, who's having yet another active night. Loss of 2 for Roberts.
Now this is the place on the field and the down and distance situation that the Calgary Stampeders, especially with the young quarterback, are going to send the house. We saw it last set of downs. We saw Scott Coe go, Brian Clark go, and John Grace along with safety Don McGee. This is when they do it. The way you beat it is screens.
Let's see if they send everybody again. They don't. Martin looks wide side. Jamie Stoddard was the intended receiver. Incomplete, and Anthony Malbrough looked like he got a hand on it.
Well, he did, because I thought he may have gambled and he was going to lose this gamble. He came way underneath on the break on this football, and I thought this was going to be a big play for Jamie Stoddard, who was sitting outside him at the sideline. Malbrough got his hands on it. Just tipped it away.
Good defensive play by the 4-year veteran. Now Westwood comes right back, missed from 37. He'll try his luck from 32 with Stoddard holding. And we have a time of a penalty, 42 yards, excuse me, as was the length, but they're going to march him back 5 more.
47 yards. Now, Troy Westwood has the win. Really, all he has to do is get it online.
Legal procedure. Winnipeg line was not set for a second prior to the snap of the ball. 5-yard penalty, 3rd down.
But it does put a little pressure, because the further you back up from the goalposts, the closer together they seem for the kicker.
And those uprights were already a little tighter after the first miss.
Absolutely.
So from outside the 47. And Troy nails this one. And the Bombers needed it with 4:20 to go, first half in Winnipeg. Back at Canada Stadium, clock moving, 4:04 remaining, first half. Calgary goes to work on offense, and whoa, big hit there. William Fields on Kenyon Rambo.
Yeah, you know, all the former Calgary Stampeders are going to want, if they don't do anything else tonight, they're going to want to hit the opponent. They're going to want to go up and hit their old teammates. Now, Rambo wasn't his own teammate. He wasn't there when William Fields was there, but that doesn't matter. If it's a Calgary Stampeder jersey, the former Stampeders want to throw the hat in there.
7 for Rambo, 2nd and 3, and you made a good point. This Winnipeg defense has done more than hold its own in this first half. Burris has a completion, and Copeland will stretch out for a first down at the 49. Well, we talked about Calgary East, or the Winnipeg Blue Bombers.
There's a lot of them, a lot of starters. Omar Emmons and William Fields on defense. Fleming, Wes Lysak as well. Look at Wayne McGarity, all the starters with the arrows. I mean, that's a lot of guys, former Calgary Stampeder.
Young and Osterhaus in the lineup. Willie Fells on the practice roster. Set of downs for Burris. Hit as he delivered, incomplete. And a flag down as Sean Woodson got to the quarterback. We'll sort that out when we return. The 3-minute warning given to the benches. Sean Woodson got to the quarterback in spite of a hold by Joffrey Reynolds that marches the ball back 10 yards.
He has been the best linebacker so far this year for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and watch the effort here. He comes from the backside. It's worth showing again. Reynolds has him lined up and then has to hold him, and even despite the holding, Sean Woodson fights his way to the quarterback, Henry Burrs. It's a great effort from the linebacking core. This Bomber defense has not given up a major in this game, despite the fact they're down 12-4.
And despite the fact Calgary enjoyed great field position for most of this first half, Burrs 5 for 13 as Walls bears down on him. He ducked underneath that, takes off the other way. Henry Burris will have close to a first down as he slides right at the stick at the Winnipeg 50, a scamper of close to 20.
You're going to see a big block from Jeff Pilon, the right tackle for the Calgary Stampeders, on Gavin Walls, I believe, which is just enough to spring Henry Burrs to the backside. And what a big play it is. Look at Walls. He has him. He's got the perfect end right there. Just a subtle push to the outside. That pushes Walls past him. And Henry Burrs is off and running for the first down.
And we know that is a valuable aspect of his game. Here they come again with pressure. Gets it away. Copeland turns it upfield. And Copeland down by Woodson after he acquires the first down yardage.
Now Jeff Pilon goes back on this very next down, and this time may have got away with one. Gavin Walls upset with that little push. I want to show you this matchup one more time, because watch what happens here. As Pilon comes off the edge, Gavin Walls coming out. Pilon's beat, so he grabs him around the collar, throws him down. That's holding, folks, not called against the Calgary Stampeders.
So the Stamps are marching, trying to add to an 8-point lead as they work against the wind, second quarter. Burris lots of time over the middle, and they say incomplete. Bob Redikoff ruling that no catch. Copeland will argue the call. Well, I thought the panel did a nice job before the game on the Robert Baker suspension. I'm curious to see how they'll handle clearly the dress code violation of Jock Climby as the guys group at halftime. Climby without the tie tonight.
I don't know. Could be a fine day, we used to say. Not as in a good day, but a
fine day.
A fine day where it hits your pocketbook. I don't know. We'll have to check on that.
Stay tuned. Halftime. 2nd and 10. Henry thought about it, thinks again, and does take off. Will he get a block? Well, he'll slide out just before Lamar McGriggs could do some damage, and he'll be short of the first down.
Sandro DeAngelis had a pretty good start to the season. And in fact, you can't really have a better start. And Henry Burris just runs out of room as Fleming cuts him off to the outside this time, and then he has to step up, and now the pursuit gets to him. This is going to be a challenge. This is a tough wind in Winnipeg.
And it's 3rd and 3, and you wonder if they contemplated a gamble.
Well, especially with Keith Stokes in the end zone. A gamble or even a punt is an option just to pin Winnipeg deep, and with minute 35, make them drive the field for points.
Now, the wind seems to have died down considerably from the opening kickoff, but he is trying this from 38. Trying to keep that perfect mark alive. Plenty of leg and plenty of accuracy.
Wow.
This guy just keeps on hoofing the football. Sandro DeAngelis with his 2nd of the night and just 5 for 5 on the year.
That is a big kick. That's a stronger wind than it looks, and he nailed it.
Well, a reminder to catch Rogers Blue Jays baseball on TSN Saturday. Toronto takes on the Rangers in Texas. Coverage begins at 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 Pacific. The Blue Jays and the Rangers on TSN. Well, Tom Higgins has to be delighted with the place kicker that many wondered, would that be a weak spot in the Calgary arsenal? Counting preseason, 11-11. T. Martin trying to get some points before the half, and Jamie Stoddard climbed the ladder but couldn't reach.
Yeah, and I think for T. Martin on that throw, that's where the wind at your back is a disadvantage, because looked like it was pretty good throw coming out of his hand, but the wind just took it, started the tail, and it went out and out of bounds. Again, not real impressive numbers for T. Martin, although in that first half, he was having trouble just getting the ball from center. Or first quarter, I should say.
Said it took him a couple of days to get over the disappointment of his opening night performance. Hasn't been any easier tonight, and down he goes again.
See, you know, it doesn't matter who the quarterback is. Could be Dave Dickinson, could be Ricky Ray. If you don't get more than a steamboat or two, you're going to get steamrolled. And, that's what's happening to T. Martin. I mean, just you go ahead and count. We'll put it in slow-mo. One steamboat. No, we didn't get to two steamboats, and we slowed it down a little bit for you.
Raheem Abdullah wasn't slowed down.
No.
And he's got his first sack of the year. He was the only member of that front three that was left out last week, although Jim Daly told us when he watched the film, he said that Abdullah was a force against the Argos. So John Ryan has to come in. 83 seconds on the clock. And instead of Winnipeg getting a chance to cut into the lead, Calgary will get a chance to improve their advantage before halftime.
Now, the way John Ryan has been kicking the football, in fact, there was a couple of sarcastic comments in the Winnipeg papers the last couple of days suggesting that John Ryan was the MVP on offense for Winnipeg, and if your punter's the MVP, then you could be in some trouble.
He has bulked up this year and unloads another missile. But this could be a returnable one too, as Rambo winds up, got outside Rutschenball, and runs out of room as he tried to turn the corner. Took it back 16, but that's a 68-yard hoof by John Ryan. Well, don't forget about the Wendy's Kick for a Million contest. One lucky fan will attempt to kick a field goal to win $1 million in prizes live during TSN's halftime show in October. You can hit tsn.ca Wendy's to enter. And it's not just the million you're kicking for, but that's the gravy. If you can nail one from 50.
I want to get coached up by Sandro DeAngelis.
This CFL stuff's easy.
Yeah, he just shrugged there. Well, I'm perfect. I don't know.
Minute 10 on the clock. And the ball at the 32. Reynolds. And Joffrey Reynolds has another first down carry up across the 43-yard line. 11 more.
Well, here's what you look when you look at this game after a half of football now. The Calgary Stampeders still have to regroup on offense. I don't think that the receivers and the quarterback, Henry Burris, still struggling a little bit. Joffrey Reynolds has been their brightest light on offense so far in this first half. For the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, similar to the Edmonton game, defense is keeping them in this football game. But remember, start the second half last week, they were in trouble.
Burris letting it go deep. He's got Copeland, and it's knocked down out of the hands of Copeland by Omar Evans. The 5-year veteran made sure Copeland wouldn't be able to clutch that one.
Well, Omar Evans times his jump perfectly. This ball takes a long time to come down to Jermaine Copeland because of the wind, and there's the great timing from Omar Evans. Just to wrap up that thought about what happened versus Edmonton to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. They played great on defense in the first half. Excuse me, the Edmonton Eskimos. Great on defense in the first half. And then to start the second half, Jason Tucker went 105 yards to open things up. Got to guard against that this week.
Even much better. Burris across the middle. And the catch is made by Nick Lewis. And that is the man who has provided the only major score of the game on the punt block return.
And this was basically the big plays. That Mike Bradley was in the first half, but the big plays against the Bomber defense in the second half. Played great in the first half other than the one Bradley play. And then the floodgates open.
20 yards for Lewis. Burris hit as he delivered the football as the safety blitz was on, and Wes Lysak may have got his mid on it. Sean Woodson also coming off the edge.
Well, the blitz is set up perfectly, and you know it's set up perfectly when safety Wes Lysak has an open lane to the quarterback. Sometimes they say don't jump, but he gambled and won there.
was saying yesterday, it's a lot in the early season for this Bomber team like it was for the Calgary defense last year, that had to spend a lot of time on the football field while the offense got untracked. And Jeff Pilon just came out of his three-point stance too soon.
You know, that's an interesting point, Chris, because you hear that all the time, that if your offense is struggling,
Calgary 64, Winnipeg.
You leave your defense on the field too long, and sooner or later they wear down. I mean, I've said that many times, but Jim Daly made an interesting point yesterday. You know, your defense can help themselves. I mean, at any time, a defense can go 2 and out, right, and get themselves off the field and give the offense more opportunity. So there is a little bit of give and take involved in that entire process. But no question, a few first downs out of your offense gives that defense a rest on the bench.
But so far this year, the Bomber defense has been on the field close to 37 minutes per game, and I get the feeling they're on their way to a 35-minute plus game again tonight. Here's Burris taking a look, and look out, leveled on the play. There is Gavin Walls, or Antoine Young, excuse me, the former Stamp, with a big sack.
Winnipeg Blue Bombers on that play sort of went into the Calgary playbook, and they loaded up the outside and put pressure. See two guys off the edge, Rylan Wickman.
Tripping. Calgary 21. Penalty is declined. It's 3rd down. Winnipeg's called a timeout.
See that replay? It was Rylan Wickman and Antoine Young coming together off the corner. And Wickman was the inside guy and the most dangerous, so he was blocked, and then Antoine Young free off the edge.
The rare tripping call against Reynolds, a 21-yard loss. Bombers call a timeout. 32 seconds left on the clock. If they have a short punt and or a good Keith Stokes return, then Winnipeg's offense will get one more chance to score some points before the half. Big rush, short kick, and it will bounce backwards. And there is contact downfield by, I think, the punter. As he went after the football, Dales, but
well, Burke Dales can be inside the 5-yard zone, but he can't run over Keith Stokes before he fields the football.
Who's he think he is? Noel Prefontaine?
Exactly. I mean, he can go in there and go for the ball without giving 5 yards because he's onside. He or anyone behind him can do that. But you can't go and interfere with the return man prior to him receiving the football. So it'll be interesting to see how they call this one.
Just a 19-yard punt, and he did get a shot at the football.
Take a look. Here he goes. You can see it's a short punt, and he's been instructed into that wind to keep an eye out for that. Now, does he go for the ball, go for the hit? Well, Stokes had it.
Yeah.
So it was basically.
Calgary, number 8, 5-yard penalty. 1st down, Winnipeg.
So they're saying someone, Cornelius Anthony, was also inside that 5-yard restraining. So Dales didn't do anything wrong. In fact, he made a pretty nice play.
Yeah, he did. He made the tackle.
And Stokes was alert because another split second, and Calgary may have come up with a football. 23 seconds left, first half. T. Martin still at the controls, and he looks for Stoddard. And J.B. Stoddard's been his best receiver, a guy who was on the bench for most of the first 2 games. First down.
And that was a real nice throw from T. Martin, who's now in field goal range with the wind at his back. Troy Westwood, this is well within his range. Put some more points on the board.
You get greedy here, though. You think about a major. Take at least a shot.
Take a shot at least 15 to 20 yards down the field. If you get it, you have a chance for maybe one more play at the end zone.
18 seconds left, so you have time for at least 3 plays. If they're quick developing, there's a ball thrown away.
That's a great decision from T. Martin. The fans are booing here in Winnipeg. They wanted to set up the screen to Charles Roberts on the backside, and he is covered. T. Martin, instead of forcing it to Roberts and probably looking at a loss or being sacked, throws it out of bounds so he doesn't lose yardage. Charles Roberts slips out of the backfield. See number 1, look who's on him. John Grace right there. So T. Martin can't get him the football, just says, hey, I'll just throw it out of bounds. That's a good decision from a young quarterback.
And another example of why John Grace is so highly regarded. been the top player on his team 2 of the last 3 years. Roberts inside, and the pass stick brings it down, so they were just playing to give Troy Westwood a little better field goal position. And so Westwood will be called upon after the 4-yard Roberts carry with 9 seconds remaining. And Westwood will be looking at a 44-yarder.
I don't think that's a bad decision from Jim Daly to go ahead and play for the field goal. If you go down the field too far and lose too much time, you may not get a crack at even a field goal attempt.
Westwood trying to keep pace with the perfect rookie on the other side of the field. And he's got his sights adjusted too. 44-yarder at the end of the opening half here in Winnipeg. And it's an 8-point Calgary lead as we head back to Dave Randorf in Toronto.
Thanks very much, Chris. Hi, everybody. Dave, Jock, Matt, and Chris. And by the way, Cuthbert made a very good point, Climby.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, what the viewers don't know is Climby just purchased the DVD box set of Miami Vice reruns. So that is the...
I can't help it if
what
you're
is
not
with
up
no
to-
tie?
Tubbs.
Look at that. Look at that. That screams
style.
1985.
Style.
That's
Tell them.
Tubbs.
Come on, it's
Tell them.
Tubbs.
I can't help it.
All right. Listen, we don't have a lot of time here. Neither team has been able to score an offensive touchdown here, Matt, but Calgary has the lead. 15 points on the board and 7 now for Winnipeg.
Yeah, that's right. You know, and they're throwing the bag of tricks at the young quarterback, T. Martin, and he's got an extreme learning curve, and it is going to be a roller coaster ride. We'll show you what he's looking at right now, and oftentimes he looks overwhelmed by the Stampeders. Look at John Grace here, number 7. You could highlight him just about every play in this first half because he's been all over the place. They're bringing 7. They flush to the young quarterback, makes a good decision here, getting rid of the football instead of taking the loss. And then here, John Grace again on some pressure. Like I said, it could be a highlight reel for Gracie, having a great start to the season. Pressure, collapse the pocket, give Sheldon a pass check, D-Max some credit there. Confusing the young quarterback. The game is too fast. Then it slows down for him. Here's what I'm talking about. Roller coaster ride. That's a 41-yard throw to the sidelines for that quarterback, and he makes it look easy time and time again. You saw it late there in the first half. Another shot to start and clear across the field. So up and down. So Winnipeg fans, be patient. This guy's got a lot of ability. It's just going to be a roller coaster ride. Unfortunately, Calgary's defense is overwhelming the young quarterback right now.
Well, luckily for T. Martin and the Bombers, the defense once again is stepping up. This game reminds me a lot of last week's game, Winnipeg and Edmonton. You know, at halftime it was 10-1. And Winnipeg was still in the ball game despite being badly outplayed in the first half. And Glenn Suter talked about it, the huge Tucker 105-yard touchdown and the 60-yard Bradley run, Winnipeg had a real shot at winning that football game. Tonight, but for the Nick Lewis block punt for a touchdown, Winnipeg would be much closer than they are right now, and they still have a shot if T. Martin can start to get some momentum going.
Very true observation, but when I look at the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, I see Troy Westwood kicking the ball out of bounds off of kickoffs, not once but twice. I see the 2 shotgun snaps that were not handled perfectly. Matt Sheridan, brand new center. I see things that at this point of the season should be executed better, but trying to stay positive here. The one thing I like, Charles Roberts, he's gotten to and through the line of scrimmage a couple of times, and you can build on this because this is a confidence issue, and anytime you play against a 3-4 front, the whole idea is to attack the bubbles, to attack the linebacker areas. The offensive line is under a lot of pressure in Winnipeg to perform like professionals. When they have plays like this, they have certain moments of confidence that they can build on, but still, Winnipeg is still relatively far away in terms of being able to compete with the top teams in the league.
You want to say something?
Yeah, I just showed you. Who was he running behind there, Charles Roberts, on those 2 plays?
Well, they had Dave Mudge at the right guard position, and then they had good speed. Yeah. So if they can find those 5 together that can work well together, stick with them.
Yeah, well, Charles Roberts with 46 yards through 2 games. Looks like he's going to eclipse that easily tonight. Nick Lewis, you said this guy's got huge hands.
Unbelievable. Schultz-sized hands.
Well, that was a big factor in that play. What an athletic play by Nick Lewis.
Unreal.
Only touchdown so far. Boston Pete's the CFL poll question that we asked you during the pregame show. Do you agree with the punishment handed down by the Argonauts on Robert Baker? And overwhelmingly, you said yeah. And that punishment, again, was a whole grocery list of things. But the main one is that he is suspended by the team for their game against the Saskatchewan Roughriders at the Rogers Centre on Saturday, which is no small thing. Saskatchewan's obviously a very good team. Baker's a key player for them. The Argonauts really took responsibility here.
Well, they did, but, you know, I think other people need to take responsibility in this mess, too, guys, and because Robert Baker's not the only individual involved here. Yes, he does have a history of having a temper, and they do call him, what do they call him, Mr. Anger? And to me, last year, week 14, at this very field, he gets tossed along with Lamar McGriggs for fighting. And so it just happened again this year, but it was caught on tape. And so the situation to me, guys, is, you know, you've got a very intense ball player. But, you know, there were some names shouting going on out there, some spitting, you know, possibilities. And the guy, was put on the block, basically. He took the fall for some other guys not stepping up.
You don't think the Argos would have suspended him had this game not been on national TV?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think that fights happen all the time. I've seen fights happen with coaches, and they not get
but with
fined.
A full punch in the face.
That was a sweet punch, too.
I mean, it was a full-on punch. And I've seen squabbles and fights and pushing. But
don't touch me, Klein.
A punch? A punch? Yeah? You ready to go?
That was a wicked
You ready to go?
I mean, what did Noel Prefontaine say to instigate
I
that?
think he told him to quit his shenanigans on the football field.
He's running on the field. The guy's hot. His temper's overflowing. That's not the time.
It's not Noel Prefontaine's responsibility to take a player and try to put him in his place at that moment. But I think the bigger picture here is the Argonauts do a great job with anti-violence, anti-campaign.
No Prefontaine.
Robert Baker let down the organization and what they're trying to achieve as professional athletes.
I agree.
Well, it remains to be seen whether or not this will linger for the defending Grey Cup champs or whether they'll be able to put it behind them starting Saturday night when they take on Saskatchewan. Here is one of 3 sacks Calgary has on T. Martin tonight. That one by Trey Young in his first CFL game. For a chance at $1 million during our live halftime show on October 27th. The lucky randomly chosen fan will attempt each distance, 20, 30, 40. Those are the prizes up for grabs. You get to take a crack at each one and eventually get a kick for $1 million. Here are the halftime numbers brought to you by Molson Canadian.
Well, here's what killed the Winnipeg Blue Bombers last week was time of possession, and you can see it's killing them again tonight. But there's some positives here. I like the fact they have 46 yards rushing. That's as much as Roberts has had in 2 previous combined games. But their net yards are down because they had so many losses.
Sean Churchill spoke with Tom Higgins.
Coach, the first half was full of momentum swings. What do we have to do to get your offense moving?
Be with the win. It is going to be a factor. What's nice is that we can have it in the fourth quarter. But again, we're looking for consistency. That's just something that we haven't been able to find the groove yet.
You had Joffrey Reynolds moving late in the first quarter. Will we see him in the second half?
Oh, absolutely. We got to go back to some of the things that worked for us, and we'll regroup, and it's going to be a heck of a second half.
Thank you very much. Good luck.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, Tom Higgins and the Stamps up by just 8 in Winnipeg. Team Martin's had his hands full. Henry Burris has faced some pressure as well. Stick around. Second half is coming up. You're watching Wendy's CFL Live.
Headed to the third quarter in Winnipeg, but first here's Sean Churchill with Bomber coach Jim Daly.
Jim, a couple of positives out of the first half. One, Charles Roberts is starting to find the holes.
Well, Charlie has really worked at his game all year, and tonight our line is knocking people off a little bit. We have to get a lot better at it, but we are seeing some progress in our run game.
When we talk about your defense, it's stifling once again.
Our defense played really well tonight so far, and you know, we made a miscue on a punt team and cost us 7 against us, but our defense has come up strong all game.
Thank you very much. Good luck.
Yes, that punt block return has been a big difference in the game. 8-point lead. Keith Stokes still dancing and taken down at the 40, an 18-yard return as T. Martin brings the Bomber offense out to start the second half.
People are going to be patient with T. Martin and should be. I think what's happening probably in Calgary right now is people are a little concerned with Henry Burris. Now tonight, wind is a huge factor in the game and will affect the passing game. But again, numbers not real impressive from Henry Burris in the first half.
I may have spoken too soon about the wind diminishing here in Winnipeg because it seems rather blustery once again. The wind at the back of Charles Roberts and company. Roberts had 46 yards in the first half, which matched his total for the first 2 games.
Yeah, and then that's a bad sign from the first two games. A good sign for the Winnipeg fans in the first half of this game, because if you can keep with it, and the Bombers are starting to put in a little double tight end, they go double tight end, we'll see a lot more of Charles Roberts.
7 for Roberts there. He's now 43 away from 5,000 in a distinguished Bomber career, and look out.
Not this time.
Brian Clark says, not on my watch.
Well, that's Brian Clark playing the play. I mean, Brian Clark just steps up right in the hole. Nowhere to go outside anyway, because John Grace is sitting there, and Brian Clark just ended that baby before it got started.
Yes, he had a huge year a couple of years ago with the 7 interceptions. Was lamenting the fact that last year he only had 2 and there were a bunch of drops, and he's been working on his hands because he thought that may have cost him some league awards. Look at John Ryan. That is a missile, and he has put on a clinic. I spoke with Bob Cameron at halftime, and the great former Bomber punter was speaking glowingly, and why not, about this youngster. That's an 80-yard punt. A single point, and now there's a flag down.
Well, and you know, John Ryan's punting may come into this game as it goes on, because if he continues to out-punt Burke Dales in this game, you know, that field position could affect the outcome.
Objectionable conduct. Winnipeg 29, interfered with the official. 10-yard penalty, first down.
Justin Coleman got tied up with an official on that play. We're going to join Sean Churchill.
Yeah, guys, you mentioned John Ryan earlier in the game about beefing up. Well, his bench press at the end of last season was 225 pounds. Training camp, 340. He definitely got stronger.
Him and Troy Westwood are both bulked up.
Well, and it's, you know, he must be working on the squats too, not just the bench press, because the leg looks pretty strong when he hammers that football.
You mentioned matching him up against Burke Dales. Right now, they'll take that matchup with anybody in the league. He has the strongest leg right now, it would appear. Henry Burris took off.
Chris, very different penalty called on that last John Ryan punt, and we actually have a look at it for you. And here's what the problem is. Now, this is incidental. Coleman steps out on the field, though, and he's off the bench, so that is interference on the official. I mean, it's and a lot of look at it and think that's a cheesy call.
Yeah, I do.
But at the bottom line, if you're not on the field, you can't step on the field.
I'm not a fan of that call.
You don't like that one?
No, I don't like that one.
Well, I hate it, but
I mean, that guy just kicked 80 yards. He's got the whole bench revved up, and a guy has 1 foot out on the field, and it's not like he interfered with a Stampeder.
Well, again, this goes down to, and you know,
in fact, he doesn't really have either foot on the field.
Well, you know, it goes back again to, we talk about officiating a bunch throughout preseason and things like that. Bottom line is that common sense has to prevail at some point, and common sense would be to have kept the flag in your pocket there, I think.
How about Ryan? He's upped his average by 11 yards, and he came in with a 50-yard average. Burris just gets it away, but it's incomplete. Intended for Rambo, and it will be third down. So this defense continues to dig in.
But I was mentioning John Ryan and the punt difference between him and Burke Dales. If you're out punting your opponent by 10, 15 yards, and let's say you times that by 10 punts, I mean, that's a lot of difference in field position, and in a close football game that we have right now, could play a factor down the stretch.
Now, Dales is punting into the wind here, so we know this isn't going 80 yards, but to match Ryan, he has to be better than 35. 40 yards into the breeze. Stokes has to let it bounce. That is 15, and great coverage downfield. That's reserve linebacker Cornelius Anthony with the tackle for the Stampeders.
Play Safeway $1 Million Touchdown to Win. If your name appears, you've won a trip for two to the Omni Orlando Resort at Champions Gate. Flights courtesy of BelAirTravel.com. Swipe your club card at Safeway today.
7 o'clock Eastern tomorrow from Percival Molson Stadium. T. Martin and the Bombers trailing by 7 after the Ryan single point. Charles Roberts for a couple.
See the problem with the run game, if you get penetration defensively, it is over, because the running back really then has no chance to not forget about hit the hole, find the hole. You can't even get to the hole. Penetration from the defense kills the running game. And right now, Calgary's starting to get a little more penetration once again.
Is that unusual? Jim Daly talking yesterday about Roberts in all the offensive line film meetings, the extra half hour a day sitting in with the big hogs to get better reads.
It often is, because running backs are usually in the special teams meeting and don't have time to do it.
Second down, Martin unloading downfield, and there's a catch by Vinny Sutherland, his first in the CFL.
And he puts a little flair into it at the end.
I was worried he'd come up limping, but that was just an exclamation mark. And there is a flag down behind the play, and was this something to be tacked on?
Major foul, unnecessary roughness, Calgary 91. 15-yard penalty, first down.
Well, your Gladiator got a little too busy.
Yeah,
Demetrius Maxey.
Demetrius Maximus was the Gladiator in the game against the Toronto Argonauts. He was awesome in that one, and a little late there.
So 34 yards to Sutherland, add 15 more, and it's the biggest offensive play of the night for the Bombers. I know some of the Bombers yesterday calling Sutherland the X factor. He has blazing speed. They really haven't exploited it much yet. Here's Kamal Peterson inside, and his first catch of the night, close to another first down. Brian Clark, the tackle on the former Stamp.
Vinny Sutherland's play leads right to Kamal Peterson's play, because when you go deep on a defensive secondary, they will tend to take a step back in the next down. And when they took that step back, in this case it was Jermaine Chapman, took that step back off Kamal Peterson, he was open for the hitch pass.
So T. Martin showing some flashes here early in this second half, but problems with the snap. And that seemed to throw the timing off, and Scott Coe made sure the timing was completely disrupted.
Yeah, and part of the problem is that the linebackers for the Calgary Stampeders are so quick and all-stars that they can get to this play around the corner. Scott Coe is going to come around the corner to get this play. Watch how he slides upfield and then comes in around the corner to make the play. Yeah, there was timing problems, but if those linebackers are that quick, man, it's tough to run.
Loss of 2. Second and 12. Martin gets outside. A completion. Short gain. McGarity. Anthony Malbrough. Nice job defensively, making sure McGarity wasn't going anywhere. And it will be third down.
And that's a different T. Martin than we saw even in week 1 against the Edmonton Eskimos, or excuse me, week 2 against the Edmonton Eskimos, when he would have run on that play. And that time he was open to the outside, but decided to throw it and take what he could get, put the field goal team on the field.
So Westwood's made a couple from outside the 40, and this time he'll try from 37. Missed earlier from this range, but he's got this one. 3 for 4 for Westwood, and the Bombers get a little closer, down by 4. Want to send out a special greeting to our Canadian Armed Forces watching from posts around the world, also to our American viewers watching across the United States. 15-11. Calgary leads midway in this third quarter at Canadian Stadium. Henry Burris swings it out right side, and Tony Stallings is cut down by Omar Evans. An acrobatic defensive play by the former Stampeder corner.
Well, it sure was, because the timing looked perfect from a Calgary Stampeder point of view. And a good throw from Henry Burris, because it's not an easy throw, but he leads Jenkins out front. What a play from Omar Evans. Or Stallings, you'd say.
So 1 on the play, maybe 2, and Bud Steen has tossed a flag. And the Bombers aren't happy about it.
Objectionable conduct. Penalty called against the Winnipeg club. You cannot use electronics to interfere with the offense. 10-yard penalty. First down.
Well, they just tossed a flag on the guy in the audio booth.
Yeah, and you know, that's just silly. That's just ridiculous. I mean, you got two teams battling it out here, and you call that interference on Justin Coleman, which was bad enough. And now listen to the fans.
Yeah, I like this Bomber crowd. They are going to make more noise than the audio guy ever could generate. But it's first down as Burris goes to work. And a completion. Stanford Samuels bringing down Kenyon Rambo. But it's a completion for the Stamps near midfield, close to a first down.
Now, and that is a rule. Now, and again, if a player steps on the field and hits an official, and that's interference on the official. If the scorekeeper brings something up to entice the crowd, there is a penalty against it. Common sense should prevail in a tight game, though. The officials need to keep the flags in their pockets in calls like that.
Second and a yard and a half. And Henry's going to throw it, and he has a completion. Copeland with the catch at the 50 and a first down.
Well, and this is the one way Henry Burris can take this crowd out of it. I mean, the crowd's going to jump into it now. But a couple of quick throws, quick passing game, and Henry Burris is now will try to quiet that crowd down a little bit.
Speaking of that rule, I noticed it was just ever so much more quiet in Montreal at Percival Molson Stadium when we were there without the electronic enhancement. Although those fans can make some noise. First and 10.
You know what? And I'll tell you something else. Chris. I hate the rule anyway. I think you use anything you can to get the crowd going. That's what home field advantage is all about. And if that means the clock, if you're not on the PA system talking while the quarterback is trying to call the signals, then I say you do whatever you can to get the crowd going. Tell me we're not telling the crowd not to cheer in a Canadian Football League game.
All I know is it got a whole lot noisier as soon as that flag was thrown.
Absolutely.
Second and 6 at the Winnipeg 46. Burris driving into the wind. Over the middle, incomplete. Couldn't hook up with Rambo. And another Calgary drive stalls.
Stanford Samuels is the defensive back covering Rambo on that play, and he's quietly putting together a pretty good game. He's a nickel back for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And he was right there. Burris really didn't have any place to put the football.
Well, a penalty gave them one first down, but getting a few first downs against the wind is a positive for the Stampeders, although I'm sure the frustration's building as their lead has shrunk. Kirkdale's in the punt. McGarity joins Stokes back. Dale's angling it, but Stokes will play it at the 12. Trying to get outside, and he lost yards. Just over 5 minutes remaining, third quarter. And the Bombers starting deep in their own zone. Kamal Peterson with the catch. Good positive first down yardage for the Bombers.
And it is a couple positives. If you can get Kamal Peterson the football a little bit more, along with Wayne McGarry. We saw him with one catch earlier on. And again, Charles Roberts. So those are the weapons for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers with Milt Stiegel out of the lineup.
Boy, Peterson looked like he had star status written all over him when in his second year as a Stamp, 931 yards, and he looked like he was on his way, but really struggled last year. Bought a jugs machine to work on the hands. And now trying to develop a relationship with T. Martin. Second down, downfield. And the defensive play is made by Jermaine Chapman as they went Peterson's way again.
Well, the fans here thought that Jermaine Chapman was there early on that throw to Kamal Peterson over the middle. And he was coming across. Looked like when we watched it live, it was pretty good timing from Chapman. No flag, and Winnipeg will have to punt the football.
So John Ryan gets set to launch again. Look at that average. And the last one was the 80-yarder. Another drive, if that hits the ground, it doesn't, so Rambo will get a good return. Bob Cameron was saying if he can angle that and get it on the turf, it can roll forever. But Rambo does a good job of fielding that, and it's a 52-yard punt, 17 on the return. Well, Henry Burris trying to get this offense clicking on all cylinders, and his priority coming into this game was less threes and a few sevens offensively.
When we are rolling and doing our thing, we can put up points quick and move the ball. I mean, we put up over 400-something yards of offense against a great Toronto defense, but the bottom line is we have to turn it into 7 instead of getting 3 points.
Well, still no major scores for the offense, only the Nick Lewis touchdown on the punt block, and that flip out to Reynolds. He's cut down by Joe Fleming.
Well, now with Henry Burris, and when he's playing into the wind, to go back to that clip, I mean, he talked about coming away with 7s, not 3s. He can't even get 3s because he's into that wind, and any given game, he'd be almost in field goal range now. You know, but now they've got to punt the football unless they get the first down, and then a couple more.
2 for Reynolds, so it's 2nd and 8. Fans are into it, urging the defense. Burris steps up, has a man, and some pretty heavy contact, but Nick Lewis holds on.
All right, that's why you love Nick Lewis, don't you? I mean, that's why you love him, because he shows no fear coming over the middle. Sean Woodson was right there. So was Wes Lysak, the safety. And they're ready to just take his head off. And it didn't faze Nick Lewis coming across the middle at all. I mean, this is the danger zone, folks. Your receiver in there, you got to have some courage.
Just a couple of catches last week. Much bigger night. Now Reynolds off the left side, breaking tackles to the 30. And
wow,
close to 9. As Tom Higgins told us yesterday, the defenders better not just stick out an arm because they could lose it.
Yeah, and that defender was Doug Brown that time. And that's a big arm. I mean, Doug Brown has huge arms. And look at the size of them. I mean, even Doug Brown's arms, Joffrey Reynolds is going to run through. He hits this hole right here, and Doug Brown has him in the backfield. Here he is right there. There's a big arm, the arm tackle, that right arm coming around. And that's not good enough against Joffrey Reynolds.
And there's a problem for the Stamps on offense. Godfrey Ellis is down as Doug Brown rolled on his leg. So we'll come back and report on the big left tackle. Well, Godfrey Ellis making his way to the sidelines, a little gingerly, but putting plenty of weight on the leg. Remember, they've lost Alexander Gauthier. Ellis replaced him, and now David DeLaparelle has to come in for Godfrey Ellis at left tackle. 2nd and just over a yard, and they're not going to get it as they botch the snap from center.
Yeah, and I wonder now, with that loss of a few yards, does that take the Calgary Stampeders out of field goal range? Now, Sandro DeAngelis has shown he's got a strong leg. He hit a long one into this wind already.
That'll make it 41 yards for DeAngelis against the wind, and again.
Well, and you got Keith Stokes back there.
Exactly. And you hope DeAngelis is green enough that he hasn't even thought about that.
No.
Because you don't want to be worried about Stokes and let it affect your kick. Nothing's affecting this guy. How about that?
Wow.
How about that? Into a stiff breeze, and he remains perfect.
And that baby crawled over the crossbar. But it was enough. And that kick at 41 yards into this wind is like a 55, 60-yarder. I mean, that's a tough wind. And he fought the wind off and dropped it over the crossbar.
Well, he's in line now maybe for the Rogers Player of the Game. Player of the Game brought to you by Rogers, your world right now. And that's how you can cast your vote. Number 82's made an impact, and he'll get some votes. And it's now converted touchdown, the difference. Charles Roberts, nice cut, and he could run for a while. Roberts cuts it again and has a first down across the 45, up at the 48-yard line.
It's a big kick for Calgary because it's points on the board going into the win for the Calgary Stampeders. Winnipeg Blue Bombers, on the other hand, have got to be frustrated with the fact that this third quarter is when they needed to really throw some points up on the board because they have the wind at their back, and they haven't been able to do that.
T. Martin's got just over a minute to work with that breeze at his back. 12 for Roberts. First down. Roberts. Ryan Clark cut him off at the pass. Roberts flushed back inside. And look at them get through traffic. Well, that's the Roberts that we've admired for so many years here in Winnipeg.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Hey, that's the type of play we've seen from Charles Roberts. And the type of play we haven't seen so far this year from Charles Roberts. But watch the second effort, because this play should have no chance. Ryan Clark has him in the backfield. Cuts back on Clark. Now the pursuit's after him. And makes a couple guys miss before it picks up good yardage. Clark has him in the backfield. Cuts back on Clark. Now the pursuit's after him. And makes a couple guys miss before it picks up good yardage.
Yes, there were a few olays in there, and he got 6, 2nd and 4.
Oh,
Ryan Clark just said, you know what? You're not doing it again.
Well, you know, last time Clark hesitated and tried to play a little finesse game with Charles Roberts. This time he went right at him. He just said, you know what? I'm not going to catch you if I chop my feet and wait for you. I'm going to just go right at you. And that's exactly what Clark does. He just said, okay, last time I messed around. This time I'm coming to get you.
His ears might have perked up when he heard you talking about the Gladiator, because Clark could get some consideration. Roberts has had some things happen tonight, but the drive is snuffed, and John Ryan is putting on a clinic.
It's a big kick, but that one he wanted out of bounds. That one he wanted out of bounds.
So it's a 6-point difference as Ryan blasts it. And we'll confer with Scott Fawcett. And we'll remind you that the West Wing is now on Sundays at 8 o'clock, 7 Central on CTV with Martin Sheen.
See that wind back there? That's a good indication of how strong it is. The flags on the goalpost really aren't blowing that hard. It's kind of deceptive, but there's the goalpost. That doesn't really tell the story.
You know, you made a good point there. I like the fact Ryan shows off and gets 78 after an 80-yarder, but they would have preferred to back them up. And Calgary with what better field position as Tony Stallings lugs it out across the 45 for a first down for the Stampeders at the end of the third quarter. Henry Burris will have the wind at his back with a 6-point lead when we come back. Stats of the quarter brought to you by Rona, the how-to people.
9 first downs for Winnipeg. They got a few going, but still that passing yardage way down for T. Martin. Good news for the Bombers, they have involved Charles Roberts, and 240 net yards for Calgary's offense, a lot of that on the ground.
Big improvement for the Bomber defense that has surrendered 487 yards a game in the first 2 of this season. 1st and 10 at the 45. Joffrey Reynolds. And Reynolds losing yards is Sean Woodson. There with help.
Winnipeg on defense went with a run blitz on first down here against the Calgary Stampeders. And what it does is it basically takes away all the running lanes from Joffrey Reynolds. You're going to see linebackers. Here's Rylan Wickman There's Sean Woodson. They're up on the line of scrimmage. They're showing blitz, and they're going to come on the blitz. And it's that blitz that really ends the run opportunity for the Calgary Stampeders.
Turns out to be a loss of 3 thanks to the 4-year member of the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Sean Woodson showing blitz. Here they come. Burris gets it away. Copeland's got it inside the 50, drops the ball. And are they ruling it dead? Yes. Copeland's got the catch at the Bomber 46.
There's a little poise from Henry Burris, and a little more of the Henry Burris we saw to end the 2004 season when he was a Saskatchewan Roughrider, because it's an all-out blitz on Burris, and there's free men. Lamar McGreg's one of them, but watch how he buys time by falling back, and he knows one thing. Copeland's going to the middle. He just has to float it into that middle to get it to him.
5th catch of the night for Copeland. He says he's at about 90% chemistry-wise with his new quarterback. First down, Reynolds pounds inside the 40.
Well, yeah, 90%, and that final 10% is probably the most important. But having said that, you know, watching this Calgary offense in the Toronto game, and now here tonight, I get the feeling that they're close. I mean, I'm saying very close to breaking out and having a big game. And it's not going to happen tonight. This one's all into the final quarter, but they're close.
But they could create a lot to build on here. Here's Nick Lewis. He may run a while. Lewis is tripped up, but a big gain for Lewis, who has 16 and gets close to 100 yards on the evening.
Yeah, and there's a little of the patience from Henry Burris that time, because he had to wait for Lewis to clear through the whole linebacking core and get to the outside. And once he does that, see, Lewis is coming this way, and Burris has to buy some time from the quarterback spot. So he waits. Now he wants, in the first game he threw it too early. Now this game he waited just long enough.
Brad Franklin, a cut of the Eskimos, made the tackle. 16 yards, and now Burris over the middle. Rambo's got it at the 19. 5 yards for Kenyon Rambo.
There again is Stanford Samuels for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, who's been matched up on Rambo for a lot of this evening in the nickel package. A nickel basically meaning an extra defensive back on the field and a linebacker off. Stanford Samuels has been charged trying to cover Rambo and done a nice job.
Out of Florida State, second down, call it 6. 3 receivers to the wide side. Burris looks over the middle. Incomplete. Lewis in traffic, couldn't bring that one in.
That was a bullet from Henry Burris. That would have been some kind of catch if Nick Lewis could have hung on to that one, because number one, he had Sean Woodson coming right at him. And Woodson has hit him before on that same pattern. We saw it earlier in the game. Woodson took a shot at Nick Lewis, inside receiver number 82. Look at him come across. He knows Woodson's coming, but that baby just had too much heat on it.
So the Stamps will settle for another 3-point attempt from 27 yards out with DeAngelis. 6 for 6 in his CFL career. Nothing but perfect for the kid. 7 for 7. 13 straight if you count preseason. Well, you can critique that they did not score a major on yet another offensive drive for Calgary, but it is a 2-score lead for Calgary now. The Stamps up by 9. Speaking of 9, Pascal Masson is back in on the corner for the Stampeders in place of Jacoby Shepard. T. Martin just got rid of it. Flag down. McGarity was the intended receiver. And did Chapman interfere with McGarity's progress?
Chapman is looking like he's guilty.
Kerry Anderson, the back judge, confers with Bud Steen, who signals it is indeed going against Calgary.
Illegal contact on a receiver. Calgary, number 23. It's a 10-yard penalty. Makes it first down, Winnipeg.
Well, nice little rub there from the Winnipeg offense, and legal contact, incidental basically, as Joey Bose was involved there as well.
So it's a first down at the 45. Again, Team Martin operating against the wind in the fourth quarter. Trying to slice into this 9-point Calgary lead. And Martin complete. Well, the Jets machine worked that time.
Yeah.
Kamau Peterson, nice grab.
Boy, that's a big one. You know, and that's for the young receivers watching this game. That's how you do it. You go back, catch the ball in the air at its high point, and get those hands in front of the defensive back. In this case, it's Jermaine Chapman once more. They're working the short side of the field to the right side of your screen. Team Martin has to put this on time to curl. Chapman's in perfect position. Can't cover it any better. But Kamau Peterson wins the battle.
Had 4 catches in the first 2 weeks. That's his third of the night. First down. Team Martin short drop. Make it 4 catches for Kamau Peterson, doubling his total for the season.
You know, maybe it's one catch like that for Kamau Peterson to get him the confidence he needs to contribute in a bigger way in this offense.
And they need all hands on deck. Again, without Milt Stegall tonight. Stegall still feeling the effects of that hit from Davis Sanchez last week here on TSN. And they think Stegall should be ready for next week, but you just never know with those post-concussion injuries. Martin in trouble and shovels it. Roberts has got it. And they are going to lose yards. It was 2nd and 1, and it's going to be 3rd and about 3 after the Calgary pressure got to T. Martin.
Yeah, then he just had to make it up. T. Martin just, I think Calgary, you know, even though they've given up a couple of first downs here on this drive, you can see the pressure coming right up the middle. Brian Clark is there. He is untouched. And T. Martin has to make things up as he goes along here and just tries to make something out of a big loss. Either way, though, Winnipeg has to punt the football. Now, John Ryan really needs to angle this baby, not put it in the end zone, even though he's probably capable of it.
Yeah, he does not want to improve on that average. He'll angle this and get the job done. They will spot this somewhere around the 10. Ryan continues to excel. Winnipeg, the Grey Cup is here, and the Edmonton Eskimos have been very generous so far in 2005.
I would suggest that the team that wins that sack race has a better chance at that Grey Cup.
5 sacks in the game, 3 for the Stampeders. Henry Burris, Jermaine Copeland at the 25, and a first down to give Calgary.
Wow, that's a tough catch for Jermaine Copeland because he had to go back. He's running to the sideline to his left and has to go back the other way to try and pull that one in a little bit behind him and high as Burris throws this on the run. And as that comes over, you're going to see how I have to come back up over his head. He makes it look routine, which he's done for a couple of years in Montreal. But that was a tough catch.
Franklin was there in coverage. 2 teams trying to get off the schneid, looking for their first win of the year. Now Calgary in the driver's seat. Copeland short arm that pass, and a pick off the other way really thickens the plot.
And it's interesting because, you know, Wes Lysak, the safety for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, is a guy who oftentimes loves to play that big hit. And when safeties have that in their mind all the time, to play the big hit first, they miss a lot of these opportunities. That ball was right there for Wes Lysak. If he's thinking interception, he may take that, baby.
Winnipeg with their first interception of the season earlier in this game. Under 8 minutes to go, 2nd and 10. Henry Burris has time, lifts it deep, looking for Marte Jenkins, incomplete, and a flag down back near the line of scrimmage. And it's a holding call against the Stampeders that will be declined.
Holding. Calgary number 50. Penalty is declined. It'll be 3rd down.
So Jay McNeil called, but the punting unit comes on. And a quarter remaining. Tom Higgins' club isn't home and cooled out yet.
No, they're not, and they need a big kick here, and there's no angling involved for this one for Burke Dales. Just let her rip and see how many yards you can get with the wind at your back.
Remember, Stokes, 4 returns for touchdowns in the last 3 seasons against the Stampeders. and won in game 1 against Saskatchewan. Stokes from his 34. Finds a crease. Cross midfield and then drilled back. But a good, exciting return. Cornelius Anthony with the stick. This is Charles Roberts after the 24-yard return by Keith Stokes. That got the Blue Bombers across midfield. Roberts takes it.
Yeah, and I like the call that the Winnipeg Blue Bombers go with here to just go ahead and continue with the run game and tight ends with Charles Roberts and have him as stay part of this game plan, because with over 6 minutes left, there's still time to stay with your game plan, even though you're behind.
13 away from 5,000, but it's not on his mind right now. First down, Roberts right side. There's 5,000 and a few more to the 20. And the running game can officially be pronounced in gear.
Yeah, very simple. We told you last year he got off to a slow start, had in 2 games 64 yards. Then he broke out versus Saskatchewan with 110. And guess what? Charles Roberts in week 3 for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, over 100 yards.
And Bomber fans know that stat when he gets 100, 17-1. But they'll have to come from behind to keep that mark going. Roberts again. Right side to the 18-yard line.
Yeah, and this is the thing about this Calgary defense, too, is that they've at times, even last year when they played so well, at times they gave up some yardage. But no one loses their cool. You see Scott Cole, they're just calm back there. They know what they're doing. They've got their game plan. There's Joey Bose. He's right. Deddy Crean's going to just call the next one. They probably go with some pressure. They often do down in this end of the field. But they'll keep their composure.
So T. Martin now has a big call. 2nd and 8. Pressure. He'll scramble. Martin trying to get outside. Cut down Brian Clark. Big tackle, or Martin would likely have got the first down.
Boy, if it's a Friday night, Brian Clark would be he would be gladiator prospect number 1. I mean, he has made some big plays, and just plays that timing-wise were crucial for the Calgary Stampeders. I mean, this tackle probably saves a first down for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and he's done that a bunch on 2nd down, 2nd and 3, 2nd and 2, 2nd and 4. It's been Brian Clark that's made the big play. You know, and the other thing that Brian Clark has dealt with is Abu Meshrik gets looked at for Winnipeg, and one thing he's had to deal with in this one is he's had to make sure the linebackers are all on the same page, because Trey Young is a newcomer there, and with Trey Young in the lineup and having to talk to him before every play to make sure he's lined up in the right position and doing the right things, takes away from your game a little bit mentally when you have to do that, but it hasn't affected Brian Clark at all.
George White out tonight with a hamstring, and Clark has talked about the 6th sense that the Fantastic Four you talk about have got when they play together. Trey Young has been in for White tonight, and the Stamps continue to lead.
The CFL on TSN is brought to you by WestJet. It's nicer up here.
Training staff guiding Mike Abu-Mekrik to the sidelines. Remember, a 2-score lead, so the Bombers have at least moved it into field goal range here against the Wind, and with just under 5 minutes to go, very much in this football game.
Oh yeah, that's definitely the correct decision from Jim Daly to go ahead and kick the field goal. You need 2 possessions anyway. Take the field goal on this one.
From 23 yards out. And Westwood has another. So it's now a 6-point lead for the Stampeders heading down the stretch. The game story brought to you by Sport Check, the power of sport.
Well, we start the story with probably a couple of the player of the game candidates in Nick Lewis and Sandro DeAngelis. Charles Roberts got 100. Joffrey Reynolds sort of disappeared in the second half a little bit from the Calgary offense. But I think there may be a chapter yet to be written in the game story.
Troy Westwood from the far hash to nail this one down the middle, and he's going to get it on the ground. So Marte Jenkins has to scramble a bit. But look out, Marte Jenkins has some room to run. And finally knocked out by Kamau Peterson. So a 30-yard return gives the Stampeders great field position. But it was a special teams play early on that's been the difference.
First punt for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and Nick Lewis not only blocks it, but picks it up and scores, and really that's the difference in the ballgame. That happened early on in the first quarter. Wake up, Nick. Calgary's going to need you.
What an athletic play he made to go vertical, one-handed in, and then do a little tap dance down the sideline.
That return was big for Calgary for a couple of reasons.
Under 4.5 minutes to go. Henry Burris looking for the knockout punch. Play action. Doug Brown in pursuit with Tom Canada, and Nick Lewis
little casual.
Look is athletic on that play.
Well, a little casual. I was going to say that return was big for Calgary, because a punt now, a single is important to the Calgary Stampeders, because a converted touchdown for Winnipeg wins the game, doesn't tie the game. So this return by Marte Jenkins, even though it didn't look good from the beginning for Calgary, was big, because it put them in field position. Even if they don't get a first down here, they may be able to punt for a single with the wind at their back.
Tom Higgins has to be pleased tonight with the fact they've not turned the ball over with the frequency of a week ago. There's Mike Juhas, his first catch of the night. It will be short of the first down. 20th consecutive game that Juhas has caught a pass. However, it's now third down.
Real interested to hear what Tom Higgins' instructions would be to Burt Dales here, because if he angles it, he makes Winnipeg drive the length of the field if he can get it out of bounds inside the 10. If he just hammers it with the wind at his back, he could have enough leg to get that single point, which makes it a converted touchdown to tie for the Bombers, not win the game for the Bombers.
He's Stokes standing at the 10, which would be just a 40-yard punt, so clearly he'll let anything get over his head and go into the end zone for the single.
Try to angle it.
Wayne McGarity, and he has to play it out at the 12, so it remains a 6-point differential. And the Blue Bombers have a long field ahead of them. Well, a reminder, TSN has the LPGA's only stop in Canada, the BMO Financial Group Canadian Women's Open from Glen Harbor Golf Course in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Our coverage begins next Thursday, 2:30 Eastern, 11:30 Pacific. 3:15 clock running. And T. Martin has a heck of a test ahead of him. Down by 6. Martin unloading, looking downfield, and incomplete. Trying to hook up with Jamie Stoddard. As the two teams get the 3-minute warning here at Canada Stadium on Wendy's CFL Live. There's the line score, and our adept statistician David Moyer has made yet another good point, that all the points have been scored on special teams tonight. The Winnipeg offense would like to change that, and will have to, in order for the Bombers to get a win. T. Martin going long. Peterson dropped it at the 50. He got in behind Jermaine Chapman, and that one's going to hurt.
Oh, baby. And there's just... What a great route by Kamau Peterson. He fades to the football. A perfect throw. You just got to have it. The game on the line, you got to have it.
And he got to the sidelines and looked for a hole to crawl in. You know, the guys said at halftime, patience, patience, and you're starting to see signs from T. Martin. But they needed that. So John Ryan needs a big punt into the wind.
Wow.
Line drive, and he gets it done. Kenyon Rambo got a block and is nailed at midfield. We have a flag down, and a contacting the kicker penalty is going to keep the ball in the Winnipeg Blue Bombers' hands. So a major break here for the Bombers with 2:28 left.
Well, major break for Kamal Peterson.
Contacting the kicker, Calgary number 60. It'll be a 10-yard penalty. Makes it first down.
You think Kamal Peterson is relieved right now?
Randy Chevrier.
Oh, boy. No question. John Ryan leg still in the air.
So the offense goes back on the field. Maybe a chance for redemption.
Wow.
For Kamal Peterson.
Well, you got to believe that Kamal Peterson right now is thinking, man, just throw it to me because I need to make up for a bunch.
He's made 4 catches tonight, but right now it's the one he didn't make that's going to be remembered. Here's the little option flip to Roberts. And he's pushed out at the 26-yard line. Jermaine Chapman helping out as Scott Coe.
You know, the little things, sorry, Chris, the little things make a big difference. And Scott Coe went to T. Martin on that play, and the pitch is just a little bit behind Charles Roberts. If this pitch is on the money, Charles Roberts has a play. He's got a lane there. But the pitch is behind him, makes him turn around, spin backwards, and Coe can make up some ground.
So instead of a first down carry, just 3 for Roberts. Remember, Coe provided the bulletin board material, and now trying to back it up. 2nd and 7. Martin scrambling, gets it away and throws it away. Keith Stokes, closest man to the football.
Yeah, Jim Daly's really not in 3-down territory yet. I mean, 2:18 is still lots of time. The way John Ryan has been punting the football, he can get the field position, his defense on, and get the ball back with well over a minute if he gets a 2-and-out.
And you made the point to me that Tom Higgins gave his defense a vote of confidence when they didn't try for the single point. They angled the ball to get Winnipeg pinned, and now Jim Daly's going to put some confidence in his defense that they can come up with a stop and get the ball back. Rambo to the 50. 2:09 on the clock in this 6-point game. Steve Barato with some instructions for his quarterback.
Again, an off and on, little bit of a roller coaster ride for Henry Burris with just 198. But I get the sense that Burris is real close to breaking out with his talent in the receiving corps. Martin has looked a lot better in this 4th quarter and late in the 3rd quarter.
Those stats would have looked better with one more Kamal Peterson catch. Now the Bomber defense loads up. Joffrey Reynolds inside, and he doesn't put a dent in that Bomber front.
Well, coaches say, you know, plays in football games come down to 1 or 2 big plays. The problem is you don't know when those big plays are going to happen. Well, in this case, Sean Woodson knows when it's going to happen. It's going to happen right now, and so does Tom Higgins.
I believe the Bombers have taken their timeout. 2:05 on the clock. 36-year-old Lamar McGriggs, part of the blue and gold defense, trying to get this football back. 2nd and 9 for the Stampeders. A couple of first downs, and this one's in the books.
Well, Winnipeg's getting the call from the bench late.
Big play here. Late in the 4th quarter, 2nd and 9. Burris, a little bobbled. Now trying to get outside. Henry Burris diving close to the first down. No feet first that time. A courageous dive by Burris, and he should be able to move the sticks.
Well, and he got nailed too as he went down, and that was courage from Henry Burris, and that's why Calgary fans will love Henry Burris. You know, and this offense for the Calgary Stampeders, they will get on track. You're going to love Burris for this reason.
Stanford Samuel stepped up. And even if it's not a first down, it's...
Well, it's almost better for Calgary if it's not. If it's that close and they can just fall forward for the first down here, then Tom Higgins takes some more time off the clock, because that's the real enemy for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers right now.
As long as the Stamps don't have a problem with the snap from center, and they can get that 2 or 3 inches necessary, that means they'll be able to click off another 20 seconds and then get a fresh set of downs.
Good bet they don't go into shotgun.
Yeah. No, that was with 1 yard to go.
Right.
Well, the fans urging the defense, but that was academic as Burris plunges ahead.
Well, he gets the first down and he gets 6 seconds off the clock. It was 1:58. That took 6 seconds, down to 1:52, and he's got a new set of downs.
Now it will roll. Well, Henry Burris has not answered all the critics tonight, but he can take a whole lot of pressure off by running another 1:40 off the clock and getting out of Winnipeg with the Stampeders' first road win in over a year. Somebody jumps. Scott Dybert straight ahead. Thought we might have seen a flag there, but there is no penalty marker. Tom Canada appealing for one.
Omar Evans certainly was as well. Agree with you, it looked like one of the Stamps jumped at the line of scrimmage, but he may not have hit it, because it may have been Copeland from behind the line that just got up to it. Look to the left of your screen right there.
And it might have been a design play by Copeland. It looked like that little stutter step was to try and draw somebody, but he towed the line. 2nd and 3. Reynolds, left side, first down. And that is going to do it. 3 more plays and 67 seconds on the clock, and Reynolds gets up, heated up. And a reminder that following the game, Dan O'Toole, Holly Horton with the latest edition of Sports Center. You'll get more on tonight's game and a whole lot more. Sports Center coming up following Wendy's CFL Live. Clock running in the final minute here.
Bullshit.
And Henry Burris working the clock down to 1 second left. Scott Dybert to the 35, 1 second left on the 22nd clock.
Well, the Calgary Stampeders, and I think when the fans evaluate this game, take a look at it, and what Henry Burris did is, once again, the passing game is not quite on track for the Stampeders with the weapons they have and the guy they have pulling the trigger. But the Calgary Stampeders hang on for another 38 seconds. Henry Burris did what he had to do to manage a win, and a couple of times he took off and ran with the football for key first downs, none bigger than the one in this series.
Absolutely. Under a half minute remaining, surprised that he might go to the air, and Tom Canada downs him back at the 44. Not the play selection you might have anticipated, but Canada with the sack, and yet Burris doesn't make a mistake with the football.
Interesting decision now for Tom Higgins. Can he kill 18 seconds? Winnipeg, they've used their timeout, so should be able to kill the 18 seconds, down it, and the game is over. You get 20 seconds to call your play.
The Bombers will drop to 0-3. And it won't get easier next week when they head to Edmonton. Knee down, game over. And Henry Burris and the Calgary Stampeders have their first win of the season. Tom Higgins first as the head man in Calgary.
Well, the Calgary Stampeders snap a losing streak on the road. It carries back to last year of 8 games. So big win for the Calgary Stampeders. Anytime you win on the road, it's a big one. For the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, again, defensively, boy, did they battle.
They did not surrender an offensive touchdown in this game. The punt block and returned the difference in a 21-16, 15 Calgary win.
Time now for the TSN turning point from Winnipeg. This one happened late in the fourth quarter. Winnipeg on the verge of making a huge play and putting some heat on Calgary, and Kamal Peterson dropped the ball on a play that will haunt him for, well, at least a week until they play again against the Edmonton Eskimos. It was 21-15 at the time, and that was the final. The TSN turning point means that a cash donation will be made to the Canadian Coaches Association for the training and development of amateur coaches across Canada on behalf of TSN. 21-15 is the final. Calgary gets their first win. Nobody scores an offensive touchdown. In fact, Winnipeg has now just 3 touchdowns on the season, only 2 of their offense, and one of them was a defensive lineman. But let's talk a little bit about Calgary first. Who wants to start with the winners tonight?
Well, I think everybody will go back to Kamal Peterson play. That's pretty obvious. But I think Henry Burris, his scramble and run for a critical first down there late in the ball game. But let's go all the way back to the first quarter, guys. When I saw Nick Lewis come in on a special teams play, block a Ryan punt, and then scoop it up left-handed, a couple steps in the end zone. To me, it goes back to watching the whole game, and you never know when a play can make a difference.
That is so true.
And to me, that was critical. That was a difference in this ball game.
And the other issue to me is the kicker, Sandro DeAngelis. The kid hasn't missed a field goal yet. Troy Westwood has missed 2. So when you look at the actual point totals, that was a determining factor in the football game, is how well the 2 kickers performed.
Yeah, he was awesome. And Ryan was great for Winnipeg. Yes. I think, how often do you see a punter keep a football team in a football game? But he did it. And you talked about haunted. I can tell you as a receiver, he will be haunted by that, and my heart goes out to him. But it's one of those things where, as a receiver, if you want to get to the next level and be a dominant player in the game, you have to make those kinds of plays, only because it's a big part of the football game. I know he'd love to have it back. He's got to get to that next level because he's got the physical talents.
Yeah, too many drops tonight in
Peterson
big plays.
had too many. Other guys did too, but he had too many.
T. Martin was hurt a little bit by drops.
But T. Martin, he was. And he needs those guys to make those plays for him in order for him to develop the confidence. And we said it right here watching the game with just less than 3 minutes to go in the ball game. He's backed up into the wind. This is going to be a time where he can really grow and learn to step up and make the plays. And he made the throw. He needs help from his teammates to finish these plays.
Most quarterbacks are evaluated by how they do with a game-winning drive on the line.
And he made the throw.
And
the key here is that Winnipeg, the game was on the line with 2 minutes to go. The fact they hadn't scored an offensive touchdown, they were still in the game. Again, they're getting better from that Week 1 performance, which was a disaster, but they are 0-3, and they got Edmonton staring at them next week. Tomorrow night, Wendy's Friday Night Football. How's this for a doubleheader? Speaking of the Edmonton Eskimos rolling, they are rolling into Montreal. The Alouettes are probably still a little grumpy after losing last week to the Renegades, who are in BC. Here's the player of the game, Nick Lewis, 9 catches for 97 yards, and the game's lone touchdown that he blocked the punt himself right here and then ran it in for a touchdown to get the ball rolling for the Stamps. Player of the game is brought to you by Rogers Wireless. Rogers, your world right now. It's the Stamps world tonight. They get their first win of the season, 21-15. Talk to you tomorrow night.